Hey guys, I'm Comire, and you may have noticed that I own a fair amount of geek clothing. I mean, sure, I might get myself the occasional toy or bigger toy rather than food, but what does this stuff actually mean to us and the industry and to video games? This is Start Select, and I want to talk about merchandise and video games. Well, I mean, if they didn't want me to buy the Yoshi Park mug, well, why would they make it so cool? I want to tell you a story. About 2 years ago, over here in bonny old London, England, I went to MCM Comic Con. If you don't know, it's a biannual event aimed at fans of comic books, TV shows, films, video games, etc., where they can meet and dress up as their favourite characters and generally have a laugh with friendly, like-minded people. It's also a place where vendors swarm to sell the merchandise of the comic books, TV shows, films, and video games, etc. Anyone who's ever been to MCM knows it's a horny sea of wooden sword replicas, old PlayStation 1 games, and anime girl body pillows. And on this particular Comic Con in question, I saw two things that I wanted, but I only had enough money for one. So I'm gonna pause the story there for a minute, because Comic Con isn't about getting torn apart by your mates for spending 30 quid on the Uncharted Monopoly set. Not anymore anyway. MCM is a marketplace, it's a trade show. It's the fun around of the Crystal Maze, except with £10 notes and a guy dressed up as Sonic the Hedgehog. You see, a few years ago, things that were marginalised as geek interests are now culturally accepted and accessible. And this has resulted in the average Comic-Con having enough people attending enough to overthrow a small city. I mean, Wonder Woman would have a very different film if everyone was wearing Pikachu onesies instead. And yes, okay, the industry is growing, quantifiably so. And merchandise vendors like BioWorld and Tokyo Toys are reaping all the profits. But don't get me wrong, they're not the only ones in the chain, and I've got nothing against creators making money off their creations or systems that facilitate that. But I do have a fear of the desire to make money overtaking the love of TV shows and films and comic books and video games. You see, capitalism has a funny way of rearing in its ugly head and sneaking in things like price increases and garish advertising and horrible commercial tactics that besmirch the simple joys of watching a Charizard hug an Optimus Prime. I'm not even sure anymore if my favourite characters were made to tell a story or were made to sell as many pop vinyls as they possibly could. I don't know if I was ever sure. But anyway, back to the story. Two items. One, a custom-made hoodie, the other, a pretty cool jacket. Well, being custom-made, the hoodie was probably the rarer find, so I decided to go with that. But I also wanted to look for the jacket online later. So, after MCM finished and the parade of grown men holding free hug signs went home, I took to the internet. Now, what followed was a dull, frankly depressing trawl for a number of online shops. Like, have you ever tried to find a Super Mario hoodie online? Word of advice, don't. It's awful, you'll only ever find clothes made for 5-year-olds, and eventually you'll get so depressed you'll send an email to Nintendo that they'll never respond to. But I did eventually find my jacket being sold on a website for 5 quid cheaper than it was being sold at MCM. 5 quid cheaper, result, pretty solid. I mean, I could probably use that extra $5 to make a sign saying, we wouldn't trust this guy outside the school gates, why is he being allowed to hold a free hug sign around even more children? But, let's pause the story one more time. Because I want to analyse something else here. How many times have you gone to the music store just to check out what you're going to stream on Spotify later? Or been staring at some Zelda figurines on a shop shelf, wondering what's the point in Amiibo, before going on Amazon a couple days later and buying 4 in a Black Friday deal? I'm gonna come out and say it. Buying stuff online is sweet. It really is. Buying stuff online is so sweet that we are systematically killing the high street retailer. And the best part of that is, whether you did or didn't know that was happening, you don't care. Not too long ago, Game went into administration in the UK, and like anyone after seeing Mario's nipples, it's never been quite the same since. You see, unable to get by in physical video game sales alone, Game is now an all-you-can-eat buffet of Pikachu dolls, Minecraft foam swords, and Pickle Rick t-shirts. There's also a shop in Stratford called Millennium that specialises in the most exclusive and useless of geek gear. I'm talking such highly sought out items as a Thanos piggy bank and the magic wand of Xenophilius Lovegood. And yet, despite being the only place in London that uses the Batman statue as a doorstop, it's only half the size it was after opening. But both of these mean nothing compared to news of Toys R Us filing for bankruptcy protection. Now, I don't need to tell you what that is. Suffice to say, it's not something you do if things are going well. I mean, maybe if Mum and Dad didn't take us to the dentist instead of taking us to Toys R Us like they promised, then they wouldn't be in this mess. And I'm not an idiot, by the way. I just know that all of this is a result of people that buy these things from these stores being A, good at using the internet, and B, would much rather avoid human contact by using said internet. But let me tell you what happened when I bought the jacket. I'd like to express this next part through the lost art of the 4chan thread. Add to basket, card details, checkout, confirmation email, status, awaiting shipment. Now we play the waiting game. Money gets taken, 1 week passes, still awaiting shipment. Send email, 1 week passes, no reply, still awaiting shipment. Send another email, 1 week passes, no reply, still awaiting shipment. Send another email, send Facebook message, get Facebook response, guy called Mark. They're waiting on an overdue delivery from their supplier. Happy to go with it. 2 weeks pass, still awaiting shipment. Send Mark a message. Zuckerberg stole the social network, now this Mark's trying to do the same with my money. Mark says it's coming next week. 2 weeks pass, still awaiting shipment. Send Mark a message, asks for a cancellation and refund. 1 week passes, no reply. Send Mark a message, get blocked on Facebook. Back to emails. 2 more weeks, 2 more emails, 2 more no replies. Looking down their Facebook page, I saw I wasn't the only person that had been screwed over by this website. There were comments from people angrier than a Call of Duty kid being called a casual gamer, waiting on orders from months, sometimes even years ago. And it was like a comment hydra, like every time they deleted one bad comment, 2 more just took its place. And then I noticed something about the content and the links they were posting. You see, they'd either post to their own products, which is understandable, or they'd link to news sites like GameSpot, to articles about big AAA games like Fallout 4 and Star Wars Battlefront. And looking at all of that, as well as the college degree level customer service I got from Dipsy Marcus, I suddenly realised, I mean, it may have taken me more than 2 months, but it just occurred to me that I'd become a victim to the dark side of capitalism. When the love of money eclipses the love of the thing, well, then you end up with a website happy to take advantage of people like me who place value in silly little things like a red Rupee Zelda backpack. A website that will shamelessly sell gamer gear but probably doesn't even know the difference between a geek and a nerd. A website so morally corrupt they'll take the money from parents looking to buy gifts for their children. Children who they'll eventually just have to disappoint. And what if this experience affects their opinion of the geek thing they were trying to get? Like, next time someone wants to buy a Snorlax plush, ironically not big enough to block any pathways, but they thought twice about it. And then in turn, think twice about the next Pokemon game. Has the exploitation of video game merchandise actually damaged the public opinion of the game itself? Well, let's finish off that story. My bank was really helpful in getting the money back. It was literally just 2 phone calls. And after a week or 2, I was able to put the whole thing behind me. But then, a couple months later, MCM Comic Con in bonny old London, England rolls back around again. You know, the sword replicas are back, Tokyo Toys is open for business, Sad Guy dressed as Sonic the Hedgehog is over there, and in the forest of all that merch, I managed to find the jacket that I'd been denied for all these months beforehand. So, I think you can guess what I did. I bought it. And you know what? My Avengers varsity jacket, I think it looks great. Actually, I know it looks great. So, self-expression. We all have a love for it. Being able to wear our likes and our loves. It's just amazing. And by wearing the jumper, or by putting up the poster, or by setting up the weird real-life statue of Hedwig, it's how we can share our interests with the people around us, thereby being our own honest advertisers, reporting the media that we love in the most best, honest way possible, much better than any marketing executive would ever come up with. And you know, while we do that, it becomes a lot easier to spot the weirdo that's just like you. So, with my story at a close, I'd like to ask you, what's your best merch grab? I mean, it doesn't have to be just video games. MCM sells more stuff than Scrooge McDuck garage sale, so just lay out whatever you want. I mean, I don't think it's gonna beat an Avengers varsity jacket that I literally had to fight for months for, but feel free to give it a go in the comments. Or chuck me a tweet. But, until next time, I've been Comire, this has been Stardom Select. Thank you, and good night. The term sandbox started to get pushed aside, and open world took its place, even though they're not the same thing. Yeah, sandbox games and open world games, they have a lot of the same stuff, like they both employ big worlds, and they both encourage and reward exploration, and they're both ill-advised nicknames for my girlfriend's private parts.